welcome in to My Dogs Are Barking on MPW Digital. I'm Landon, and today, man, we're going to be looking at a kind of a recap for Mississippi State and Georgia. Mississippi State gets the win. Bulldogs beat the Bulldogs in Athens. And for Mississippi State, no. Okay, 3, 2. Well, welcome in to My Dogs Are Barking on MPW Digital. My name is Landon, and man, I'm so glad to be with you today. We're going to be recapping Mississippi State and Georgia. Mississippi State gets the win that they so desperately needed over Georgia, but man, they made it interesting. So we'll talk about that here soon. Then also towards the end of the show, we'll give a preview to the matchup on Tuesday night in Starkville, there in Humphrey Coliseum, where Mississippi State is going to be taking on the number 5 team. Well, they're for now. They will be top 5 here soon, but Florida coming to town after their big win over Auburn. Man, that is going to be a big matchup for State. But we'll cover that a little bit in a little bit more depth in a little while. But I wanted to talk about Mississippi State and Georgia. So we'll get into that and kind of the big takeaways from Mississippi State. It was a game that they needed to win. And like not in terms of like you lose it, you're out of the tournament, but according to Joe Lunardi, Mississippi State was a 7 seed going into that game. And so if you lose that game along with the really difficult games they have coming up, it does not bear well, it does not look good for you. And we even said in the show last week, if State becomes an 8 seed or 9 seed, you really don't like their chances winning another game, just because the matchups can go either way. That's always a 50-50 game anyway. And with this amount of talent on the team, you really need to secure a better seeding than that. So State gets the win versus Georgia 76-75 on the road. And Georgia's an improved team. They're 16-8, 4-7 in the conference. So they're not a great team, but like they've got a lot of talent. Asa Newell was as advertised, a good player. Silas Demery Jr. was really good, 23 points. 7 of 18 from the field, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, just was really, really talented. So we're going to cover this game a little bit more in depth. But first, I want to let you know that My Dogs Are Barking is brought to you in part by Arpa's Coffee in Starkville. Listen, Tuesday, if you're going to the game in Starkville, which would be a great game to go to if you're a fan, you get another opportunity to see a team like Florida. And like whether State wins that game or not, Florida's going to be a team that probably goes pretty deep in March. So seeing that team in person is going to be fun. Do yourself a favor, go by Arpa's Coffee Bar there in Starkville in the Cotton District. It is a great place to grab some caffeine, or if you're just looking for a great meal, man, it is ideal. This Venezuelan hot dog, Venezuelan burger is really good. You can get the nachos, you get the plantain chips. I mean, it is a really good spot, and it's also different. Look, there's 1,000 barbecue places. I love barbecue, right? I'm probably made of barbecue sauce at this point. There's a million good burger places. Starkville's got a lot of good food, but you want something different every once in a while that is just something that's unique. Arpa's is the way to go. Here's the best news. Mention that you're a listener of the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. Say, hey, I want to get that 15% off My Dogs Are Barking podcast discount, and they will give you 15% off just for being a listener of the show. Can't beat that, man. So make sure you do that. Also, hey, what does it mean to be rich? We talk about it on the show. What does it mean? People talk about wanting to be rich. You think about, Johnny Broom's probably making a good amount at Auburn. He goes to the NBA next year. Fella's going to be rich. But what does it mean to be rich? Maybe it's less about reaching a magic number and more about discovering the magic in life. Skip Langley is your Batesville, Mississippi Edward Jones advisor serving clients across the area and across the state. Count on him for financial strategies that can help you support a life you love, because the key to being rich is knowing what counts. So contact him today at 662-563-9843. And together, you can find your rich. Edward Jones, member SIPC. So for Mississippi State, they go on the road at Georgia. They look good there in the first half. And then honestly, the second half was just kind of a collapse to some extent. Josh Hubbard shot pretty well from the field. He was 2 of 8 from 3, but he looked good early on. And then you just had some other guys that just had some problems. I thought that the biggest issue, like State as a whole, State shot 30% from 3. Man, that's just not going to get it done. Melendez has been a little off from 3. He only took 1 in this game, but he missed it. Claudell Harris, 25% from 3. Josh Hubbard really struggled, like I said, 2 of 8. But Keyshawn Murphy continues to be a big part of this offense. Had 14 points with 50%, a little more than 50% from the field. Michael Nwoko had the first 9 points in this game. And then all of a sudden, he only had 2 more points throughout the rest of the game, but he started off hot, which took some attention off of Hubbard, and Hubbard was able to kind of get it going. And then Nwoko, he only played 15 total minutes, and a lot of that was there in that first half. And of course, State kind of had to buckle down late. Gay Chol got some playing time in this game for Mississippi State, and the reason is, if you notice this, so Mississippi State, we talked about on the show before, Mississippi State is all about the help defense. When the ball gets thrown into the paint, say it's one-on-one versus Keyshawn Murphy, Claudel Harris or Cam Matthews, somebody comes down to help, and that's where State has gotten a lot of turnovers. The problem is when they pass it and kick it back out to the open guy, a team's there to hit the three. Thankfully, Georgia hit 2 of their first 3 threes, and then they started missing them, but they had open shots. And that's the problem with this help defense. It can generate a lot of turnovers, but man, if you don't get out to defend the 3, you're in trouble. And State has been this season. So what they realized was on some of the opportunities to maybe go one-on-one, Keyshawn Murphy is just too skinny to pull that off. And Michael Nwoko is better on the offensive side, or has been. So Gay Chol has a little more thickness to him. Even Nwoko, he's a big guy, but he does not have the thickness that Gay Chol does. So they brought Chol out there. He's just young. Only played 5 minutes. But he's just not on the defensive side of things. He's just not developed. He can score. I mean, if he played now, he'd probably score 10 or so a night. He's got some skill offensively, but defensively, there's still some growing to. Again, he's just a young player, and so I was interested to see what State was doing. But I thought that was interesting to bring Gay. He's only played in 13 total games this season, and State's has 22 or 23 games played thus far. So I was a little surprised at that. But for State, they have got to get help down low. It's so odd. I mean, we talked about it. There's no Jimmy Bell on this team. There's no Tolu Smith. So State needs other guys down low to help them out. And when you have to do the help defense, that's fine. But like a team like Auburn tore State apart. Ole Miss did, Kentucky, and Florida is about to do the same thing. And Alabama, like the help defense is great until it's not. And State just showed some struggles. Riley Kugel, I was glad to see him back and having a good game. Played 22 minutes, 10 points, 4-7, 2 or 3 from 3. And overall had a pretty decent game. Sean Jones had 14 minutes played. I like that. He looked like he was getting exhausted in the game. And again, Josh Hubbard looks like offensively he is back. But State had some trouble slowing down Silas Demery Jr. I mean, he's a really talented player, but State started to let that game go because when Samto Surreal, I guess that's how you say it, for Georgia came in, he's a lot thicker of a center. I mean, he's 6'11", but he's 260. So he's a bigger and thicker guy. So that's when they brought in Gay Chol to try to see if they could do something against him. And it wasn't. State just does not have the bodies yet when it comes to thickness in the paint to defend. And so they got to go with the help defense, and they've been getting killed on threes. But in this game, State was able to prevail, and in the end, like they held on. I mean, there's things in this game you can look at and go, "Geez, man! Like how in the world did we let that happen?" Some technical difficulties there, but we got them fixed. But overall, State gets the win, 76-75 over Georgia. They survived. In the end, like that's just what you want to do. Ole Miss, for instance, was playing LSU down 11 with 2 minutes and some change left, came back and won the game versus a really bad LSU team. And sometimes, like in the end, like you're just going to look back and go, all right, they got the win. And that's what's going to go down as another SEC win. So State moves to 5-5 in the conference. Georgia falls to 4-7 in the conference. But for Mississippi State, kind of going forward, they've got quite a task. Again, 17-6. I'm going to go to their quad 1 games remaining. So they beat Georgia, but now they have another quad 1 game at home versus Florida. They got another quad 1 game on the road at Ole Miss, quad 1 game versus A&M and then 2 quad 1 games at Oklahoma and at Alabama. So State's got to find a way to really come through in this. In the net, they're 29, not great. So they moved up 1 after their win. State has to continue to kind of build on this. And so when we come back, we're going to preview Florida and Mississippi State in a game where it's big. And honestly, Florida's coming off of an emotional win versus a great team in Auburn on the road. And State has an opportunity here to do something big. I think if State's able to get the win versus Florida, they all but lock up a top 7 seed, because that's another quad 1 win, and it's versus a really, really good team. And that's what they need to do. They need to be 7 or better, to me, if they want to have a chance of winning another game. It's not that they can't win as an 8 seed or a 9 seed, but man, it's a lot tougher. And I know it's kind of like, well, go figure. Yeah, the higher you are, the better. The lower, the worse. But for Mississippi State, they've gotten into some bad matchups. A play-in game, that's not where they need to be in. 8-9 matchup is you're just asking for trouble. So State really needs to try to secure a win against a team like Florida. And then later on in the week, State has an opportunity on the road at Ole Miss. And we're going to have Neil McCready on the show this week to give a preview about Ole Miss and honestly kind of talk about where these two teams are going, kind of the trajectory of the season for both teams. Because they're both kind of finding themselves in this limbo. So we will take a quick break and hear some ads from MPW Digital, and then we will be back.
All MPW Digital podcasts are brought to you by our friends at Parish Brewing Company, located in the heart of Cajun country in Broussard, Louisiana. Parish Brewing Company's simple goal is to make awesome craft brewed beer, and they do it remarkably well. The doctor is introducing their new go-to IPA, Dr. Juice. It's a highly crushable juice bomb, dry hopped with a blend of their favorite hand-selected hops from the Yakima Valley in Washington. Dr. Juice's drinkability is sneaky good, considering it clocks in at 6% ABV. The pour glows a rich cantaloupe hue with a thick frosted haze, soft mouthfeel, an aroma and taste that's full of passion fruit, papaya, and blood orange, making it drink like a glass of freshly squeezed juice. They also have Ghost in the Machine. It's a double IPA brewed with obscene quantities of hand-selected Citra hops from Yakima Valley. Expect pungent grapefruit flavors and aromas, tropical fruit, less harsh bitterness than most IPAs. Again, it's Parish Brewing Company. Wherever you get your beer, check out Parish. Make sure that you look for them, because any beer that you get from Parish is going to be absolutely outstanding. Thank you from MPW Digital. We're brought to you by Easy Hemp Company. Easy is a hemp-infused sparkling water. It's a guilt-free alcohol alternative, a natural way to relax and unwind. It's all natural. Made with real fruit, no added sugar, low calories, gluten-free. One 12-ounce can of Easy has 3 milligrams of THC. With Easy, it's easy to avoid the gummy scare and control your experience. So change the can, not the ritual. It's easy. Visit EasyHempCo.com to view the Easy Finder to find Easy near you. Easy is Farm Bill compliant with hemp derived from THC, CBD extracts. Easy is for people 21 and older. Enjoy responsibly.
We're barking on MPW Digital. So Florida Gators get the win on the road at number 1 Auburn, 90-81. A really, really impressive win on the road. Florida's caught fire here with Todd Golden, man. They have done so well. Alex Condon had 17. Walter Clayton Jr. Had 19, but he was 4 of 8 from threes. Thomas Howell had 16 points in the game. And then Alex Condon also, I mentioned he had 17 points. He also had 10 rebounds. That's a matchup for State, to me, that is going to be interesting. Now, thankfully, Condon, he's skinnier than Keyshawn Murphy, but he doesn't have like a tremendous amount of girth. But he is going to give State some issues unless they figure that part out. The problem is you kick it back out. If you find Walter Clayton open, you can forget about it. I mean, what is it? Urban Klavzar? Lord knows how to say that. Was 3 for 3 on threes. As a team, they shot 39.4% from 3-point range. State has a big task coming in. And honestly, I think more fans, at least, now this is not the players, more fans are thinking about what is State going to do versus Ole Miss, because that's a win they really want to have. And I think everybody gets this feeling because those teams split all the time. I think teams are afraid that that State's going to lose on the road at Ole Miss, and they have a great chance of doing that. But you get the opportunity versus Florida first, and you have a chance to upset a really good team in Florida first. And here's the thing: State already had a shot versus Kentucky. Had Kentucky on the ropes, man, couldn't pull it out. Had Alabama on the ropes, couldn't pull it out. Can State figure out a way to make this a game, or is this another opportunity where State is just outmatched like they were versus Missouri, and they have a great shooting night, and State just doesn't stand a chance? I don't know. It's some teams get stronger as the year goes on. I think Vanderbilt's one of those teams that they've just looked better and better. Some teams regress as time goes on, and to say State has regressed, maybe that's a little rude, but it's like they're just not showing the strength that you would think they would at this point in the season. We're February 9th, February 10th, and State seems to be slowing down a little bit. I think State's going to have all kinds of problems in this game. Florida is a potential number 1 seed and probably going to get it. So if you're State, what do you have to lose, man? Like, a loss versus Florida is not going to sink your boat. But, and I'm going to pull up on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. Going to pull up the remaining schedule for Mississippi State. And there we go. There we go. Sorry. Producer Lando. Got to go. All right. So State has Florida this week. Tuesday night at the Hump, 6 p.m. Get past that game, win or lose. If you win, man, you have beaten a number 1 seed more than likely. You have really secured yourself, in my opinion. I could be very wrong, but in my opinion, I think you secured yourself a top 7 seed or being a 7 seed or better. You go on the road at Ole Miss. That's a tough one, but it's very winnable. A&M's also. I told you about teams getting better. A&M's gotten red hot, and A&M at home now, and that game is always really, really good. The head coach for A&M slipping my mind at the moment, but the dude always dresses so snazzy, he's just always so fancy. So that's going to be a tough game. On the road at Oklahoma is winnable. And State's a better team than Oklahoma, but it's on the road. Then you got another shot at Alabama on the road. LSU played really hard versus Ole Miss, just couldn't pull it out. Texas can shoot the 3, just not a great team, and you finish with Arkansas. So this 3-game stretch is the toughest remaining 3-game stretch for State. They got the win versus Georgia. That's big. That's huge. That's a quad 1 win. You need that. Can they figure out a way to win one of the next 2 for State? If you're a fan, I think that's what you're saying. This year in college basketball, man, because UConn's kind of down, Duke is not invincible, Auburn just lost, Florida's kind of coming up out of nowhere. There's so many. Alabama's not who they usually are, but they're still really good. The teams that like the amount of teams that could win it this year, to me, is several. Like there are so many different teams that have an opportunity, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with all these teams here as we go down the stretch. But in terms of the game with Florida, I just don't see State having a good shot to win the game. You don't lose anything, but so take your best shot. But Alex Condon he's not like a 260 pound, 270 pound huge center, but he's a guy with some length and he's really athletic. He averages eight rebounds a game. Walter Clayton Jr. is going to be a good position at the guard. He's averaging 17.5 points a game. I mean, you have several guys that shoot 35% or better from 3, but I'm interested. To me, the most interesting matchup will be Alex Condon versus whoever Jans decides to stick on him. Like Cam Matthews, is 3 or 4 inches shorter than Condon, but they're not super far off on the weight. So I'd be interested to see if he gets any opportunities. Keyshawn Murphy just seems like he's just too small to do that, but he's such a gift on the offensive side of the ball. So I think Alex Condon is the biggest kind of X factor for Mississippi State. He had a double-double versus Auburn, and man, looked really good. And then he almost had another double-double versus Vandy, a 19-9 versus Vandy. The game at Tennessee, I mean, they lost by 20, and he had a rough game there, but versus the potential number one team in the nation, he was able to really show out. So I think that Alex Condon versus Cam Matthews or whoever else they decide to put on him is going to be huge, because I think he has an opportunity to really have a big game. But Jans cannot allow, even if you do the help defense, he can't allow Walter Clayton to get open and shoot. And there's just too many teams too many guys that can beat you for Florida. And so you got to worry about that if you're Mississippi State going forward. I think State drops this one on Tuesday at Auburn. I'm excited to hear from Neil and ask kind of what his thoughts are on Ole Miss and Mississippi State. That's going to be a big game, and we'll have a really big preview for that. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you follow us on social media. It's just at MyDawgsPod. Would love to hear from you there. And yeah, always appreciate the support for the show. And look, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on all the social medias. MPW Digital as a network has they hit the 11,000 mark on subscribers, which is a really cool deal. I mean, that's something that's really neat. But Mississippi State has a representative on the show, and it's My Dogs Are Barking. So State gets the win versus Georgia. They've got to feel good about where they are. Getting the win on the road, a quad one win, is impressive. Georgia's not South Carolina. South Carolina's a bad team. It's not like you went on the road, versus a team that's really, really bad and barely got a win. Georgia's a good team. I understand like being frustrated with it, but Georgia is a talented team, and they're a quad one team. So they've gotten better. 16-8 is that'll do, and they've played well. Georgia struggled versus Alabama. They beat LSU. But this is a team that beat Kentucky earlier on in the year. So just saying, they're not a terrible team. And then also they played St. John's. They beat St. John's earlier in the season. And again, another team that's rolling. Dude, you don't want any part of St. John's right now. Rick Pitino has St. John's playing really, really well. And did you know St. John's has a Mississippi State player on their team? Does anybody know who it is? It is Davion Smith, who is a former Mississippi State player. I think he's on his fourth. He's on his fourth team. Played for Mississippi State, played for Georgia Tech for 2 years, played for Utah for 1 season, and now he's at St. John's. So my man literally went to a different school every single year. He's just kind of trying out, kind of seeing what's good, but it's working out for him at St. John's. I mean, he's on a team that has potential to go really, really deep in the NCAA tournament. So very excited to see where things go. Hey, what are your thoughts on Mississippi State in this game? Were you pleased with their performance? Were you frustrated? And I think most importantly, kind of take away this game, throw it out the window. Where is it going forward? How do you feel about Mississippi State going throughout the rest of the season? And as always, we love hearing from you. Thank you so much for listening to the My Dogs Are Barking podcast, and we'll holler at you next time.